Mr. Steffan Browning. Here he is. Good morning. So just a recap of how we run proceedings. So 10 minutes. We'll try to be strict with time because we don't have a lot of it today, and a lot of people to get through. So welcome, and the time is yours.
Kia ora tātou, and thanks for this opportunity. The issue that I'm putting in front of you is around the use of glyphosate-based herbicides, and particularly for this council, where your response to me in an Official Information Act request was that you don't separate sort of playgrounds and things because of the nature of your parks. You've got significant amount of trailways, something like 220 kilometres from off your website, and what I'm basically doing around the country and with annual plans is particularly has been rather urban focused, in that it's asking councils to remove glyphosate-based herbicides out of their streets, parks and playgrounds. So you've got a slightly different array, you might say, of area that you're looking after, but some of the issue still applies to you, and particularly it's whether you're just standardly spraying where you could be using mechanical edging, or, as is happening in some parts of the world, using hot water or hot foam. The reason that we're sort of bringing it to you is that you may remember the start of last year, the World Health Organization came out and said that glyphosate was a probable carcinogen. Now, they say a probable carcinogen because they can't actually test on you and me for ethical reasons, but on animal testing they were able to show carcinogenicity. I've got a range of information here which covers a greater range of issues with glyphosate-based herbicides too. So you've got endocrine disruption, neurotoxicity, organ damage and the likes. And so this has always been the case, but of course we were sold that glyphosate was tame. You could darn near drink the stuff. I don't think Monsanto said you could drink the stuff, but other people that were probably selling the product did. But you might remember images of nice white swan floating along in a pond, and I think it was in magazines, on TV and everything, made it look pure and very innocuous. The opposite is the case. And the reason why I come to you as well, I am asking the EPA to do a reassessment, but actually the EPA is under-resourced significantly. It'd be lucky if we can do 2 reassessments on pesticides or other things of that nature in a year. Unfortunately the budget didn't manage to double or triple or quadruple its funding. It relies purely on industry supplied science. Purely. The last time they did an assessment of any significance on glyphosate was 2009, and Dow AgroSciences, who are applying for yet another one of the 94 formulations that are in New Zealand, supplied that dossier. I'm supplying you a different one. The time before that was 2004, and that was DuPont, who were doing something similar, and before that was Monsanto. They once had the patent on the base product. Not only that, they're only assessing the principal ingredient, which is glyphosate. They are not looking at the surfactants, the spreaders, the penetrants and whatever that make up a product such as Roundup. And there's plenty of different products. The Roundup bunch might be 8 of the 94. There's lots of different formulations, but they all have things we call adjuvants, and they're not testing that. Yet they can increase toxicity huge amount of times, and some of them are more toxic than the principal ingredient. So it's that combination, that synergistic effect, and it is very effective. It's a a systemic herbicide, so it gets right down there, kills the roots, and we go, wonderful. because some of the other things only burn the top off, and you may have to go back again, whether it be mechanical or steam or whatever. Because I've got a limited amount of time, I've got a dossier here which I know in your role, similar to mine, that you'll struggle to read. And I do hope that you'll get your staff to at least go right through it. But some of it you may keep as a reference. And one of the documents is glyphosate no safe level. Now, we say no safe level because some of the negative effects are at parts per billion, and there's no thing. A maximum residue limit doesn't deal with that. It's much, much greater. So I would use that as a resource, but if you get the opportunity or you have someone that can spend that time to look at that, or a subcommittee to look at that, you'll see that it's heavily referenced. It's also available online, and on there, each one of those references is live, and you can look at the research that supports that claim. For your speed and everything, there's a two-pager that's basically got those points, but not as elaborate, I have to say, and I would recommend, given that gap, that you look at the other part. The other document that's a little bit thick as well, but I would encourage you to have a look at, it's particularly relevant to yourselves, is called Paradigm Shift. And that is just to look and it discusses the economics. If we know there's some very negative health effects, can we just go, which is the cheapest? Or should we be trying to consider that there are externalities that we might not be able to measure, but need to be considered? So if there are negative health effects, and I say there definitely are, how are you going to balance that up? Can you reduce the use? And I would suggest for this council that a reduction in use would be very, very important if you can go down that track. It's also good for tourism. When they don't see that golden edge, they see a mown or a machine-based edge. In there are some alternatives as well for councils. There is another document that's a brief on alternatives for councils, but the paradigm shift has some other, includes some a little bit more fully. So in terms of the urban environment, that's very, very, reasonably complete. It certainly shows that there's no excuse to be using it in this day and age. And there's also ways of maybe saving money. If you're mowing some parks, do you maybe not need to mow them quite as often? And if some of them you might, but others not. And if there's a saving to be made there, if there's a perceived extra cost from using alternatives, that might be where you get your money from. So it's an issue for staff to work out, okay, how do we manage this vegetation management budget without using so much glyphosate? So I would request that with your annual plan submission, for my submission is that with this annual plan that you actually put some money aside for really looking at alternatives and getting staff to look at where they can reduce it. You will hear conflict around the World Health Organisation's claims of it being a probable carcinogen. They've gone back, that particular group, which is a cancer research-based group there, and they reiterate what their findings were. That was seriously the independent published research that they were looking at. It's disappointing to find that in other parts of the WHO, and including Food and Agriculture Organisation too, there's a group there that was unfortunately chaired by people from the equivalent of our AgCom, and a lot of you will know AgCom. They are the industry group in New Zealand for pesticides, agrochemicals, that they were actually chairing or deputy chairing the meetings that have come up with some of this stuff that's helped put confusion into people's thing. The other one is biotech industry were in there, people that have been direct beneficiaries of that. So that's quite disappointing, and I implore you not to be confused by the orchestrated confusion that's put out there under those groups that we would have were brought up to respect and think were good. But the cancer research people appear to be true and unbiased, objective. So that's the brief of it, and it's probably about as short as you want me to be, or as long as you want me to be. Yeah.
Well, just about out of time, but any final comments or?
No, well, one, I'm very happy to come and present
10 seconds.
in a more lengthy way, or to your staff or a subcommittee. Normally I'd have a PowerPoint and be at you for about an hour, but this is the brief.
Okay.
Well,
thank you for the
Yeah.
time and effort
Yep.
and for travelling here and talking to us today, and we'll be deliberating tomorrow. So.
Yep, and best wishes with the rest of your day.
Thank you very
Cheers.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see if we can sort this thing out. That's better. Okay, so who's next? Cape Coast Arts and Heritage Trust, Martin Bates. Flash is pretty new, isn't it? It's flashing mine.
Second-hand from Gans.
Oh, it's got a lot of technical stuff on it. Good morning and welcome,
Good morning. Thank you.
gentlemen. 10 minutes, please, and I've got a bit of a timer deal going here, but we do have a lot of people to get through today, so
Okay. There should be a presentation
the time
that
is
should be
yours.
loaded on your system.
Presentation. Anyway, kick the job off, and we'll catch up with the preso when we see it there.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Martin Bates, and I'm here representing the Cape Coast Arts and Heritage Trust this morning, and I'm joined by Tom Mulligan to my left here from Mata Iwi Marae, which is the gateway marae for the Cape Coast. In there.
Got it.
What you should hopefully have seen before this meeting is a proposal of ours to construct and build a arts and heritage trail that follows the Cape Coast. The Cape Coast being basically starting at Black Bridge and going all the way through to Clifton. Ideally, it's going to follow the Landscapes Trail. That is a cycle ride or walking journey that follows that part of the coast as well. Our aim and ambition is to provide information and inform people and encourage them to take the time to enjoy and appreciate the Cape Coast, and to enrich their experience as they're following the trail by highlighting both its history and also its natural assets. To achieve this, the signs along the Landscapes Trail will be contain bullet-pointed sentences in dual language, so bilingual English and Te Reo, and they'll direct anyone who's interested to more detailed stories, photographs, maps, etc., which we'll have on a supporting website. The Landscapes Trail itself, if you're familiar with it, actually offers a great deal of diversity along the course of the Black Bridge, the Matuki, the estuary wetlands, the coastal features, the beaches, the surf reefs, breaks, and of course the wineries, which most people are probably aware of by now. It's one of the more popular locations for winery trips in the region. The idea for the trail came out of the Cape Coast community planning process, which was facilitated by Hastings District Council. The consultations for this began back in 2014 and involved all of the community from Haumawana, Tiawonga, Clifton, and from Marae as well. Out of that came a desire and a wish to see an arts and heritage trail. And after the community planning process, the Hastings District Council consulted again through survey of the ratepayers and the residents in the area, and of 273 surveys that were returned, 82% identified that the Arts and Heritage Trail should definitely happen. So it has a lot of community support, a lot of backing within the community on there. Since then, the Cape Coast Arts and Heritage Trust was formed. I'm one of the founding members of that, to try and facilitate the development of this facility. The community is, as I said, actively engaged in this, and as part of this, we've been looking to compile the story of the Cape Coast. We've already received funding to commission that work, and the historical research has been underway for a while now. What has come out of that, and probably many people don't realise is the Cape Coast is pivotal in the story of Hawke's Bay. Many of the things that happened in Hawke's Bay originated in the Cape Coast, and on the handout you've been given you'll see just sort of some bullet points of the history that goes through there. The marae itself is a critical part of the Maori story for Hawke's Bay, and it is still very relevant today in all the activity that goes on. And I think what some people forget about the Cape Coast is it's not really just about the communities that are there, it's a resource for all of Hawke's Bay. And for many, many years, it's been used as the playground for Hawke's Bay residents. It was the first seaside resort for inland residents. They used to have their batches there and go there, enjoy their leisure time. Today, of course, it has other draws, and many tourists go there specifically for the wineries and the gannets, which most people are aware of on there. So one of the outcomes that we believe will happen from this, and it's a social outcome on there, is that this historical research will be provided and made available to the whole community. We will put it together in an archive, we'll make it available to the region, to the libraries. We'll have an online resource for that, so it is now publicly available. Quite incredibly today, if you go to Haumawana School, they don't actually have a teaching resource to enable them to teach the history of the Cape Coast. There is not a single tome that exists that has consolidated all of that history in one point. And if you look at Haumawana School's website under history, it's just a blank page. There is nothing there. So the Trust's work will help facilitate as a teaching tool as well, not just for Haumawana School obviously, but for all of the schools in Hawke's Bay, and bring that in. So we believe that this work, when we bring it all together and we make it available, is going to achieve one of our greater goals, which is about communication, connection and building community. Because it's by doing this that if people understand their history and their heritage, it engages the community, and then they're more willing and able to participate and to become caretakers of that and manage it for the future generations going through. Now, obviously, apart from the social outcomes, there's also some economic outcomes which we're all keen to see the benefits of as we go through. We know the Hawke's Bay Trails are one of the most comprehensive networks of trails in New Zealand today, and we're justifiably proud of that fact, and they are well utilised not just by our own residents but also by visitors from within New Zealand and also from abroad on there. However, despite that fact, they are still not the #1 cycle trail in New Zealand. That honour belongs to Otago and their rail trail there. And one of the reasons for that is they're offering more than just a trail. It's not just a ride. They've got a lot of history which they're presenting and making available to users of it. So they're adding value to that trail. And in the government's recent budget, they also identified that the trails were a resource for the communities, for the wellbeing of communities and also for tourism. And they're going to invest more in those across the whole country. By doing so, of course, that's going to put more pressure on our trails because there'll be more competition. So we need to consider that fact, and by developing this signage along them, we're going to be adding value and hopefully make them a destination in their own right and enable us to compete with the likes of the Otago Rail Trail on there. Tourism is important, and Hawke's Bay Tourism have recognised that fact, and they've recognised the significance of our proposal, and they are backing it themselves. And for the online content, they are going to make their resource available to facilitate that and manage it. And they'll also be adding it, if it goes ahead, to their own trail maps and the marketing and everything they do on there to encourage its use. It's also fair to say that it's not just about cycling, of course. That section of the coast from Black Bridge through to Clifton is very popular for walking and strolling as well, and it's a good afternoon stroll from one end to the other, and it is very easy to segment as well and break out. So we shouldn't just concentrate on the cyclists, but it is for everybody on there. In environmental outcomes, we also believe we can deliver with this trail because we're going to enable and highlight the environmental benefits, particularly if you go down to the wetlands, what we'd like to see built there as well as the signage, is identifying the wildlife, the natural wildlife that occurs in the wetlands there, so people can appreciate and take in not just the wineries, but also and the scenic views, but understand the diversity of the wildlife that is present along the trail and along the coast in there. And if people understand and recognise the wildlife, again, it's more likely to produce responsible stewardship of the environment going forward. And particularly with the children, if we start them off younger, with understanding and appreciating their surroundings and the wildlife that it's in, it's more likely as they grow older that they will maintain a desire to protect the environment that they live in. And that has been recognised by the Department of Conservation's National Education Strategy, and we believe that the trail will fit nicely in line with what they're proposing around developing the youth interest in the environment today with our signage as it goes through. Now, the trail itself, we believe is integral to Hawke's Bay going on. Lifestyle is often the number one reason that people give for wanting to come and visit or live in Hawke's Bay, and the Heritage Trail is going to highlight, support and enrich the compelling story that is Hawke's Bay and the Cape Coast as we go through. So we think that this project is not just about the Cape Coast communities, but it is about all of Hawke's Bay, and it will have a positive impact on all of our lifestyles and our well-being as a community.
You're out of time.
Yep.
Just so we're clear, you're asking us for $30,000, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for your time.
Okay.
We'll be deliberating tomorrow. The hearing will resume at 11, not 9 as advertised. I'm sorry, but that's what's happening. So,
Okay.
kia ora, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chief, can you please indicate to submitters that we would like time for questions?
Well, as we've said in 2 previous hearings, it's their prerogative, councillor. If they want to talk for 10 minutes, it's up to them. We've got Marie Edwards, I think. Good morning. Oh, you want Tom there too? Okay. 2 for 1, Tom.
Yeah.
So you've just heard a request